Hello gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of The World of Gaming, your number one podcast where we discuss everything that the world of gaming has to offer. Games, news, technology, and we basically go through everything that happened over the course of this week. And as always, I want to remind everyone in the beginning that this podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all the good stuff. So if you want to listen after the fact, you can do that not just here on YouTube, but also via a podcast service of your convenience. And for those who do listen audio only, I always recommend to check this show also out on YouTube because we have an awesome live chat here each and every Thursday with the best community. And I already see a lot of familiar names here in chat. Welcome to you guys. But I also want to welcome this week's special guest, Jon Clarke from Xbox Era, co-founder. Yeah, he's the co-founder of and editor-in-chief at Xbox Era, co-host of the Xbox Era podcast, Patreon of the book celebrating 20 years of Xbox, and one lucky guy because he gets to interview Phil Spencer himself in only a couple of days for the 100th episode.
Well, we've actually already interviewed Phil. And I say interview. Let me set some expectations on that. And first of all, thank you for having me. I've got to admit that was one slick intro. I'm going to need to get some pointers off you. You covered all the bases. I usually forget all this stuff. You know, the like and subscribe is about as far as I go. So kudos. But yeah, Phil. We met with Phil, Nick, and I earlier this week. With Jesse in tow. It's a pre-recorded segment. I would not describe it as an interview. This was more Phil seizing the opportunity to congratulate the Xbox Era team on 100 episodes. So he came in and hung out for about 10, 15 minutes, something like that. So, but that will be in the episode this Saturday, which is really cool. I mean, it was what a privilege.
Which is absolutely. And big congratulations also to making it to 100 episodes. Well deserved. How are you feeling about this?
It's kind of cool. Nick and I started this because he had the Xbox Series Discord. It had been around for a while, which had obviously spawned off of Resetera. And I was in this OT on Resetera saying, anyone fancy doing a podcast? And he reached out and we connected. And then, we said, we've got to have a website for it. And then I was like, no, let's go big or go home. And so we went big. And now 2 years later, 100 episodes in, the growth we've seen in terms of viewership and the maturity of the site and launching our own community forum, the fact that Phil is a member of that forum, reads that forum for feedback, interacts with the community, posts. It's something that we did not plan for. It's extremely humbling to kind of be given the opportunity to help guide the community in this way and provide a platform for everybody to come together. And I've said it before on many other shows in many other formats, but the Xbox community is one of the best because of the way everybody, from content creators to podcasters to, YouTubers, everything that you can imagine, the whole smorgasbord, even the journalists are helping lift each other up and giving everybody the sort of push that they want or need. And it's like that rising tide lifts all boats. And I feel like it's a really great community to be a part of. And I'm super proud that we're giving a place to go and chat about things. So yeah, it's really cool. And appreciate you inviting me on. It's really nice to be here.
Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here today. And yeah, you said it so well. This is the awesome part about this community. And it is something that also surprised me when I started doing content, that in this Xbox community, people don't see you as a competition, but as a partner we help each other out. We talk beyond the stages and in the DMs and everything, and people just help each other out. And that is, like you said, is so awesome about this community. And again, big congratulations for this big milestone on Xbox Era. This is well deserved. Fantastic site you have over there, a great community and a fantastic podcast. I usually listen to it every Monday morning. That's I drive by bike to my work on Mondays, and that's always when I listen to you and Nick. And so I'm excited to have you on here today, and we have some awesome things to talk about today. We will talk, of course, about Microsoft being the highest rated publisher in 2021. We will talk about a new Xbox codename that has been spotted. We will talk briefly about the state of play, the chip shortage. We have some updates on that. Xcloud, Perfect Dark, Redfall. There's so much going on. Even though the big news are missing, there's still a lot to talk about. So I can't wait to do that with you today. And before we do that, I want to start this show always with the talk about the games that actually came out and that we play.
I need more jingles in my life.
I'll make you some. Just hit me up.
I need more of this. Like, I need a soundtrack to go on. I'm walking around just like cleaning up or something like. But yes, games.
Yeah.
Those wonderful things called video games.
Yeah.
What have you been playing?
I just finished the other day Horizon Forbidden West. So I had a lot of fun with that. Got a little bit repetitive at the end, but overall it's a fantastic game. I really enjoyed the story and how they built the world, and
very pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a blast with that, and then I just bought Elden Ring, and I'm only 2 hours in, so can't really judge yet. I'm usually not a Souls guy, really not. A couple of weeks ago, I talked with Jess Corden on this about this on the show. I said I used back in the days, I played some of the Souls games like Demon Souls and stuff. But when I became a father, I had less time to game, and I just lost the patience. So
yeah, it's funny. The FOMO is really getting to me. Because I've had so many people that are not traditionally Souls games, but I know who I am in my heart, and in my heart I know that it doesn't matter how revolutionary it is in its freedom of its design. It's an open world game that's huge that I will bounce off of because I just ain't got the time. So if it arrives on Game Pass at some point, if someone throws me a disc or a code, I'll certainly install it and happily dabble. But I'm just going to let the FOMO pass me by and try and resist as best I can, and not worry about it. I haven't been playing much beyond that, to be honest. It's been a very, very busy, odd week. A little bit of Halo Infinite because I'd like to get my multiplayer kicks in. But it's a tactical Slayer orientated pass this week, and it's not my favorite game type. Although I like Mangler starts, that's pretty fun. Finished off the Sea of Thieves stuff. I know they've just launched their new Fort-related content today, so that might go on the docket for tomorrow evening if I can get around to getting online. But other than that, I've got Guardians of the Galaxy that's definitely getting played because I know that arrived on Game Pass yesterday.
You haven't played that?
Haven't played it, no.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
It was a Square Enix game from a Western developer.
Yeah.
It was probably going to come to Game Pass. I made the right call in waiting. It's not going anywhere. It's a single player, so I'll definitely play through that, I think, this coming week.
Yeah. The Guardians of the Galaxy game was probably the biggest surprise for me in 2021. I did not expect that this game is actually going to be fun because of the way how they showed it.
Yeah, it looked awful.
It looked awful. And so I didn't buy it on day one. I bought it in a sale at the end of the year, and I had a blast with it. The writing is really funny. The combat is good. The story is great. So you're in for a treat.
Excellent. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. It's been a while since I've sunk my teeth into a really, lengthy, meaty single player game. So I'll definitely enjoy that. And the soundtrack looks great from the snippets I've seen, which is often key for a Guardians of the Galaxy kind of title. So yeah, definitely looking forward to playing that one.
Awesome. Well, so before we move to the news of the week, I just want to read a brief super chat from Jon Clarke, who sends in $10. Thank you so much. And he says, "Hey guys, we should play Elden Ring sometime. By the way, hope Xbox makes a handheld and a streaming stick bundle it together for $400. Yeah, I think we will talk a bit later in the show what Xbox could or should make. We have that new code name. We will get to that, Jon Clarke. And I agree on Elden Ring. Let me just figure out how to actually play the game. I started the first 2 hours. I had no idea what I did. So I had to read through a guide from Season Gaming. Great guide to get started. But yeah, I first need to learn how to play that game before I'm going co-op.
Yeah. Before someone comes in, helps you out.
Yeah,
Got to learn the ropes.
exactly. All right. So let's talk about the news of the week.
See, that one's way more jaunty. Like that one was more like the other one was like really like beat driven. That one was kind of like everything's okay. It's the news.
It's the news.
It's the news.
Because sometimes the news, you know, you never know what the news bring.
That's true.
but
That's true.
but we start with some awesome news. Microsoft was Metacritic's highest rated publisher in 2021 with an average score of 87.4. That is not just the highest rated publisher in 2021, but the highest rated publisher ever from Metacritic in a single year. They had 10 products published by the Xbox Game Studios that were reviewed in 2021. 5 games released over different formats, and the average Metascore again was 87.4, and that's the first time, according to Metacritic, any publisher has reached a score over 85 since they started that thing 12 years ago.
Wow,
Jon,
that's pretty impressive.
Do you make of this? Right?
Well, I think it's a good indicator of the journey and the path that Microsoft as a gaming platform is on, right? Because I think all Xbox fans, like genuine, let's call them Xbots just to get the fanboys going, right? All of those guys, they have been, I think, incredibly patient, you know, especially between sort of 2016, maybe even 2015 to 2018, something like that, when up until the One X came out, there was very much a case of wait for this and wait for E3 and then wait for, you know, Gamescom and then wait for Game Awards. And, you know, we've gone from 5 studios behind that platform to, well, following the successful closure of the Activision deal, 30 plus, right? All focused on making content for this community. And I did not see that happening, and I don't think anyone else did either, right? And it's a tremendous kind of props to Phil and the leadership team at Microsoft for actually realizing that vision. But I think it's also the fact that they had a vision. The Xbox One came in, it did not have a vision that resonated, but they really went back to basics and they focused on the things that I think the majority of people that actually play video games and love the medium that it is really care about. No gimmicks, no frills, just power and good games. Yeah. And that is starting to pay off. So I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't the first time we will see Microsoft winning and having this accolade. Having said all that, if you're ever on Twitter posting Metacritic differences between 2 completely different games and throwing out L's, you know, go and reassess your life. Go touch some grass. That's all I'll say. I'm not looking to cause conflict, but you know, one man's 70 out of 100 is another man's 95 out of 100. Gaming is subjective. Good games, bad games. There's always something for everybody. So I don't like the reliance too much on that green box or the amber box or the red box. But regardless, I think it's a really good achievement and an indicator of the quality that Microsoft are now really finally starting to get towards. They're not there yet, but they are getting there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's no secret. I usually am not a fan of Metacritic. Like you said, gaming is subjective, and at the end, the review is always just an opinion of the guy or gal playing the game, and it is nothing objective. And having a Metacritic score is kind of suggesting that it is an objective thing, which it really isn't. I have enjoyed games that had scored in the 60s, and I had a blast with them, and I really did not like games that are in the 90s. So that is subjective. But like you said, having an average score this high just shows you one thing, and that is that Xbox not only has games right now and will have also in the future, of course, but they have actually quality games. Whether they are for you or not is debatable. Microsoft Flight Simulator isn't for everyone, but it is a fantastic game. Age of Empires 4 also. Not everyone's gem, but it is a quality game. No arguments there.
Yeah.
Psychonauts, Halo, etc.
The diversity is important, right? It is
Exactly.
without that, if everything was an FPS, or if everything was a third-person action adventure game, you would get bored. Like, and I like the fact that again, the kind of the great thing about Game Pass, and I think folks need to realize Microsoft know they're in a lull, right? I'm seeing it on Twitter. Oh, when's Microsoft poking with a stick? Do something, okay. They did just announce an Activision acquisition of $70 billion. I know that was only like last month, but big whoop. Like people just have very short-term memory. It's always about the latest game that's out, and Microsoft are going to have to pad the next 3-4 months with Game Pass deals and things like that, because the content pipelines and pandemics and everything else just hasn't quite aligned. But this is I mean, it's reality at this point. And I mentioned earlier, wait for E3, like that became a meme, but this is the last time I think that we're going to have to wait. And I'll drop a tease. Maybe Phil mentions a bit of that. Talks a little bit about some of this stuff, if memory serves. I can't remember if it was on there or off there, but just about that kind of cadence. And I know we chatted about it with Jeff Grubb last week, actually, and maybe that's what I'm remembering. But it is a case that the content creators are now there and lined up. That it's just waiting for that cadence to roll in, and then big game every quarter. Let's go. This conversation will be a thing of the past.
Absolutely. Like you said earlier, they have now, after Activision, 35 studios. Really, nobody knows exactly, because there are a lot of support studios also coming in. And usually, do you count them? Do you don't count them? Yeah, it's something like that. So that means that there are 50 plus games in the making under the Xbox umbrella. Even if you average 4 to 5 year development cycle to each of that game, that means that we will get 7, 8, 9 games each year.
It boggles the mind, sir. It boggles the mind.
Exactly. So I'm with you. I still think, and we will talk about that probably also a little bit later in regards to another topic, but the communication in terms of games is only to have one event a year is not enough. If you have that many games, I think they could do a better job by having smaller events over the year, 2-3 other events, but smaller things. But still, like you said, there were big news at the beginning of the year. They blew everyone's socks off, and now only a few weeks later, everyone complains about not getting the news. Still, Microsoft has a really full pipeline, and it's exciting. And that Metacritic score just shows you that it's not just about the amount, it's also about the quality, and that is what I appreciate.
Quality and diversity all the way. And this won't be the first time I think we'll see that report have Microsoft at the top going forward. Interesting times. Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, another thing happened this week. And this comes with courtesy from Idle Sloth on Twitter. He discovered a Xbox codename, a new Xbox codename, Xbox Keystone. Just to remind ourselves, what were other codenames? Xbox One was codenamed Durango. Yep. Xbox Series X was Scarlet. And now in a database that serves that powers Azure, somewhere Azure related, they discovered another codename, and that is Xbox Keystone. So I want to ask you, Jon, what do you think? What is Xbox Keystone? Is it an Xcloud device, a mid-gen refresh, a native handheld? What is it, and what do you think it should be?
Well, I mean, we've heard previous rumors they were definitely working on some sort of Fire Stick like cloud device, right? That is just purely running Game Pass on cloud, and you just Bluetooth your pad to it, and that's that. Plugs in the back of your TV. Could that be this device? Yeah. I've heard a lot of talk about handhelds. I am of the opinion, personally, that it would be a detriment to Microsoft to create a third, or fourth, or fifth configuration of hardware to go and support. I'm trying to sit there think OG fat Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X, Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X, and then you chuck a handheld on top.
Although you can argue that they are dropping the last gen consoles from now on out. Every game that comes out from now going forward is next gen or current gen only.
That's true. That's true. So you could argue that, but just they've gone on about how cloud gaming and playing games on a device that you've got, that exists already in your pocket is an additive to this experience. And if I look at it big picture for a while, we were just talking about the pipeline and how it took so long for Microsoft to grease the wheels and get to the point where, the second half of 2022 and then into 2023, it's just going to be nuts.
Yeah.
Do we really picture them wanting to add another spanner in those works? Oh, can you also make sure your games run on this? And I've heard arguments saying, oh, maybe it's a shrunk down Series S. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, but I just don't see it. It feels like the wrong message. It feels counterintuitive to everything that they've said thus far. Having said all that, we've seen the great success of the Steam Deck. We've seen the tremendous, unstoppable success of the Nintendo Switch. Yeah. Just like Kinect was riffing off of the family-friendly accessibility of the Wii. How Sony's Move did the same. Is this that counterbalance to try and capture some of those markets where people just want to take the games on the go, and that device can run some titles natively and some titles via cloud, or a mixture of the two? Maybe. I would be remiss of me to say definitively one way or the other, but I'm not necessarily knocking them down. I just feel like it doesn't gel with their current messaging to actually be making a handheld. I think it's more likely that it's the cloud-based streaming stick. Yeah. What do you think, though?
I've been also thinking about this a lot. I'm kind of with you on the handheld device. I would love one just for me personally to be able to play natively on a handheld device, but I agree with you that Microsoft probably doesn't want to make it more complicated for developers than it already is. They have to make the PC builds, the Xbox Series S, X builds, and the cloud builds, and somehow they always have to optimize that. And I think Microsoft is leaning towards this, what you said. We all have a screen where you can play it, and they will definitely invest more in that. Is it the stick? I'm also not so really sure. I know that it is rumored, but they also work with a lot of TV suppliers to have native apps on there. So here's my thoughts. I think it is a Slim. An Xbox Series X Slim. And here's why. We are still dealing with the chip shortage globally. And a great way for Xbox to increase the amount of produced Series X would be to shrink the die size down. And every 18 months, we have we can basically reduce the amount of silicon required to build a certain chip by 50%. That's Moore's law. And that's why usually they do these slim versions, because they can shrink simply the silicon down. Usually it's a cost-driven issue. Bring the cost down and sell it to us at still at the regular price, and then
of course.
it's cool. But in this case, I think it is in their own interest to really move towards smaller die sizes, and with that, of course, to an Xbox Series Slim. So that's basically what goes through my mind.
I don't know. I think there's a part of me that thinks it's a little too early for a Slim, like, because of the chip shortage. I'm almost like, is that going to just alienate audiences if it's the same in terms of power and output, but it's smaller than the black box? Is that?
Yeah, that's a
I don't know.
Good point. I mean, but on the other hand, the Series X and S turned 2 this year. We don't know whether and when
True.
Xbox Keystone come out, and it's not that uncommon that after 3 years you get the first iteration. Look at the last gen. The PS4
Yeah.
Pro came out 3 years after launch of the PS4. And in this case, we are not talking about an enhanced console, just a slim,
Yeah,
especially
maybe.
with that in mind. So this is what goes through my mind. But I want to hear from the chat. What do you guys think? I will put a poll in there. And I want to hear from the chat. What do you guys think?
The name Keystone is interesting. Keystone,
Yeah.
like that, the cornerstone. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. That name is quite evocative because it's like, oh,
Mhm.
the linchpin of, if it was Operation Linchpin, you'd be like, oh, it's the keystone of the operation. It's got to happen, otherwise nothing else succeeds. So maybe that's why the name's there. So it does cause a certain amount of intrigue. Like the Series S was a gamble that Microsoft took that initially everyone was against, but I think has proven itself to be fine because most people don't really actually care, especially if they're kids, what resolution their games are running at,
Yeah.
or how pretty it is. Just that it runs well and works and is fast, then they're happy. And for 250 quid in the UK, it's a no-brainer. It's a Game
It's
Pass
actually a
box.
no-brainer. Yeah, I have a lot of friends actually that are usually more PlayStation guys because here in Germany the PlayStation dominance is
Reigns supreme. Yeah.
is insane, and especially with the value of Game Pass. And just a few weeks ago, the Series S actually was on sale for 89 euros here, which is really a bargain. In combination with Game Pass, and I know a few people that just use it now, and they all hook it up to a monitor, so they PC monitor where they
1080p.
usually 1080p, 1440p. It's perfect. It's a perfect match.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of people are doing that. Like my little boy's got my old series. Damn you, Microsoft naming conventions. My old Xbox One X, and I was up there with him, and it was going, "Whoa," it was like jet engine, and it's struggling to run things like Minecraft. And I'm like, God, I've been spoiled by these silent, whisper quiet, super fast
Consoles.
SSD machines. And I'm like, I've got to get you a little Series S, mate. Like, I've got one in here. I've got my Series X out in the front room because I've got the better supporting telly out there for it. But I think I'm going to have to invest. Maybe I'll get just another Series X and give him this Series S. I don't know. I'll figure out a way. I'll find a way to make it all possible.
Yeah. I'm thinking actually about a Series S in the living room, because I usually play down here in the basement in my man cave, and also I come here down with my kids, of course, because all the consoles are here. We have a good setup there, but it's something different to actually game in the living room. So
Yeah.
let me briefly
Go on. I
please.
saw the super chat come in.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to catch up on a couple of the super chats because they are topic related, and I want to mention them right now. Drawn TJ sends in another $5 and says, it can't be a refresh because it's hard already to get a Series X alone. It's probably what I suggested. Yeah, I don't think it's a refresh in the terms of it's a Series X Pro or something. We are definitely too early in the generation for that. But again, the Slim would only make sense and help in the chip shortage. So we shall see. Dave Ramos sends in $5 and says, Keystone definition, central stone at the summit of an arc. Does not sound like a size reduction. Instead, a last piece to a large plan.
Yeah. The name itself is very, very interesting. Keystone
Definitely.
sounds important, and I'm very curious as to what it's going to end up being. Maybe we'll find out in whatever the E3 we get this year.
Yeah. They said they have a lot of news for this year planned that are not just game announcements. So yeah, definitely interesting. So let's look at the poll in the chat. What does the chat think the Xbox Keystone will be? 19% say it's a handheld. 69% say it's the streaming stick. Only
Nice.
8% think it's the enhanced console, and only 4% agree with my suggestion. It's a slim console. Just
You
closing
can't win
this
them
now.
all.
No, yeah, it's definitely interesting. And I mean, the Xbox hardware team is there, and they have to be working on something. So
Well,
they're not just sitting around and doing nothing for years. So
it's worth mentioning that console design, new hardware design, usually starts 5 years before you see it actually for the first time. So it's very possible that Keystone is the console plan for 2028. We don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out together. But I think that the chip shortage is going to have made a difference to whatever those plans are going to be. Just like look at the Switch. There were all these Switch Pro rumors, and then all that got announced was an OLED refresh. But then, those Pro rumors have started bubbling up again because we've seen an NVIDIA leak that suggests they're working on an updated chipset. So, maybe that is the case, and it's just the facts of pandemics and chip shortages and all of this sort of stuff has culminated to this general kind of like, everyone hedging their bets somewhat because it's a risk to go out and pump out new tech and then be like, no one can buy it because we can't make enough of it, or the economy's gone terrible, which it has. Everything is very tenuous right now if you're making a product. So I think there's probably some hedge betting going on.
I couldn't agree more. And while we are on this topic, there is actually an update on the chip shortage situation. And this comes actually from TSMC's vice president. Now, I hope I don't butcher the name. Wang Chiang Mai. Or something like that. I apologize. Close enough. TSMC is the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company, and it's the company that manufactures all the chips for AMD. And with that, also all the consoles. Actually, I've been there many years ago, when the Xbox One was still in production, and I've seen that line where they made that chip. That was like 8 years ago, 9 years ago. Anyways, she says, yeah, we're getting old. She says that she expects that the chip shortage is continuing for multiple years. She's not expecting any changes before 2025 or 2026.
Blimey. That doesn't sound great, does it?
No. And I think this is goes very well in line with what you just said. It's probably Xbox, Sony, they all had that plan for slim consoles, mid-gen refresh, whatever, but a lot is changing. Not just because of this shortage now. We have also a lot of other things like the pandemic, and of course now the entire war situation globally that will affect a lot of things. And I also think that a lot of plans are now being moved. Especially
they've got to be ready to keep things fluid, right? They've got to be able to bend with all of these market pressures that everybody's kind of facing. So either way, I think it's without a doubt the most interesting generation, probably because of all of these challenges and hurdles. And it's definitely given Microsoft a real chance to make a difference because of the uniqueness of the Series S value proposition. I bet there are a lot of people that are very glad, because do you remember right before the launch, there was a will they, won't they? No, of course they won't. It's going to hold the generation back. And it's proven that it's not really, because it's the same stuff. It's just tweaks down. And I'm very glad that they did it. I think it's a really good way to get more people playing the Xbox games that are out there and having a bigger and wider community.
Absolutely. It is a fantastic entry point. It is also, especially when you consider the casual gaming market, a fantastic product. And we've seen that it's not holding anything back. I've said that actually before the launch in a couple of videos I did, that if one thing is holding game development back, then it's always the lowest common denominator, and that is in this case always the minimum specs of the PC versions of these games.
Yeah.
So that's what is holding anything back, and not the Series
all about
S.
scale. All about
absolutely
scale.
Absolutely. All right. Good talk. Good talk. Listen, I have Jon from Xbox era on, and one day prior to that, State of Play happens. So I want to briefly touch on this. Do you have a PlayStation, by the way? I actually don't know.
I don't have a PlayStation. It's one of these things. I mean, and you mentioned it earlier. When we grow older and we have kids, we find we have less and less time. So I'm very much in the PC and Xbox and dabbling in VR camp. We've got Switches here in the house as well. But the PlayStation, the thing is that more and more of the games that come out for PlayStation, particularly, are, especially their AAA stuff, is focused on these really lengthy, arguably all verging into this guided open world third person action adventure game. And I used to love that genre, but the older I've got, the more grumpy I've got, the less time I've had. I've started to love and you'll find this in terms of what I usually end up reviewing as well, is I love games that try and use the medium in a way that is entirely unique, right? And someone would say, "Oh, Jon, The Last of Us 2 is this cinematic masterpiece that," and I'm like, it's a film as a game. Right? That's just my opinion. I haven't played it, right? So I can't. It's just when I look at it from an outward perspective, I'm like, it's telling a story through a game. And there's ways to do that. But if the majority of it is cutscene based, it doesn't hold a huge amount of personal interest for me, because the interest for me in the medium is its interactivity, where I'm driving the story forward personally, not watching events play out with QTEs to define my actions, but it's my choices. And there are games that I think are hugely unique that do that kind of thing. Like Nick and I often harp on about BioShock, that would you kindly moment. That is a normal game doing normal things, but then it's using the facts of how game design works. Go here, do this, go here, do this. And then boom, throwing you this plot twist just via the narrative that was mind-blowing for everybody at the time. Things like Batman, I think it was Arkham Asylum, the first one, where the game looked like it crashed and you kind of freaked out. And then it was like, oh, no, it's the game playing around with the medium. Two Brothers, Tale of Two Sons, where it uses the control scheme to push that emotion up when you realize that you're controlling both states. All of those kind of little things are the games that kind of speak to me nowadays. So I often review smaller indie titles that try and do something a little bit different, like Genesis Noir and stuff like that. So I love the things that games can let us feel, and that's usually the focus of my kind of time and effort, as well as obviously trying to guide the ship of Xbox era through the waves of the internet.
It does take away a lot of gaming time, I can imagine. I only have a small YouTube channel, and still already that takes a lot of time, doing a video each week, doing the podcast each week, guesting, of course, on other podcasts. It takes away a lot of time.
It's all about the team. And I've got the utmost respect, to folks like you that try and do all of these different things solo, like completely on your own. Like I look at Season Gaming, and yes, they've got a team, but they're a small team, and they're trying to cover every platform. Similar for the Iron Lords, and I'm like, man, we're just covering Xbox, and there's a fair few of us, but we are rammed all of the time. I just don't know how people do it. So I have to give a mad props to the folks actually behind the scenes at Xbox era that are often unsung heroes, because without them, the dream isn't realized. Nick and I are lucky. We get to be the ugly, well, maybe in my case, ugly faces of it. Nick's quite handsome, isn't he? Nick's quite a handsome fellow, and he knows it as well.
As are you. As are you.
Flattery will get you everywhere, my friend. But yeah, it's a challenge. It is a challenge.
Yeah, it is definitely. Okay, so you probably didn't pay too much attention to the state of play yesterday. Let me run you through it briefly, because there have actually been 0 Sony games. It was mainly carried by Square Enix games and
4 or so.
An Xbox game, or a Microsoft game, better said. So they have shown Forspoken, got a new trailer. Square Enix announced an action RPG, Valkyrie Elysium. Capcom announced a new dinosaur game. It's not Dino Crisis.
Sorry, Jaw Muncher.
Yeah, I've seen the community's favorite is actually in a line with my favorite showing, and that is the Turtles collection. There's a Cowabunga
Yeah, a
collection
lot of
coming.
people are very happy to have seen that.
Yeah,
The Cowabunga collection. I think what a great name for it as well. It almost sells itself.
yeah.
I did see a bit on Exoprimal, which isn't
Mhm.
obviously the Dino Crisis that certain folks wanted.
Yeah.
What was interesting was I saw so many people reporting Exoprimal as PlayStation only, and it's not. It's coming
Not,
to the Xbox
no.
too. So I think we had Diofield Chronicles as well.
Yes. And then we
Yeah,
had a new trailer for Ghostwire Tokyo.
yes, which
Yeah.
we will get to enjoy next year.
Yeah, exactly. 1 year later. Hopefully.
Yeah.
We will all assume that it's a 1 year timed exclusive, but I still have in my head the Final Fantasy VII remake thing. Everyone assumed it's a year. Now we are 2 years later, and we still have not seen that game on the Xbox platform. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
well, it's 2 years in April, I think.
in April. Yeah, I think in April.
So maybe
Yeah,
you'll suddenly see something appear at that point, or maybe it will come straight to Game Pass. If I were Microsoft, that's what I would do as a big
yeah.
apology for not getting exclusivity on it. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole conversation there around the buying of exclusivity of titles, but we'll let it slide because I'll probably end up going on a minor rant.
Oh, I would love to hear that. I'll give you my thoughts are really briefly explained about this. When I think about the whole conversation, does Xbox need more third-party exclusives? I say actually no. I want them to spend the money to get more games into Game Pass, because I personally don't have a benefit from Microsoft keeping a third-party game off of the PlayStation platform or any other platform. I don't have a benefit from that, but I do have a benefit if they bring it to Game Pass, because then I don't have to buy the game. So I'd rather have them spend the money on Game Pass day one games, for instance, rather than third-party exclusives. So
Yeah, and hey, I completely agree with you on this one. I would rather the investment going to Game Pass, and I would argue, if you look at how games with gold's kind of ending up nowadays, that is where the focus is, right?
Yeah.
They've got a big budget there to pump and secure content for people that are subscribed, but the whole the rant I have, and it's there was actually a really great article written by one of our community members who did a post on resetting it, and it kind of went on Twitter and then went viral. And he kind of fleshed it out, and it's really about this kind of approach from the media where you remember the backlash to Tomb Raider 2013.
Yeah.
Not Tomb Raider 2013.
The
Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Rise of the Tomb Raider 16.
Right. That is
thing.
Microsoft doing exactly what Sony has done with many originally multi-platform games. And when Sony do it, it's like, oh, good for them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did I miss a meeting?
Yeah.
Did something happen and no one tell me? Why can we give one reaction to one? And it's purely because they're the platform leader. It is just accepted. And when the lesser favored console at the time did exactly the same thing, and arguably was forced by the relentless backlash to be really clear on it, and actually, if you're comparing it to Final Fantasy VII, and it's bizarre, like, is it ever going to come? We don't know, because they're not allowed to actually say. They were forced to kind of like, yeah, okay, guys, it's only a year, chill out. And I just find that really odd. And I wish the media would kind of be like a little bit more, maybe we should kind of either treat them all the same, or admit that there is a small amount of bias in how we view it because we prefer one platform to another. And to suggest that all journalists are completely objective, I think is a bit of a fallacy. Hey, guess what? I run an Xbox platform. Guess where my bias lies, right? But equally, it's my job to, when I communicate out, or when the team communicates out, to actually say, this is good or this is bad. And we've got to hold the platform to account. That's our role in the community. It's not just to go, ooh, rah, rah, every game's fantastic, because how does that serve anyone? And I think that, that then feeds into the whole algorithm of YouTube, right? There's two extremes. You either love it and you lavish praise on it, and people who agree with your extreme view go, yeah, I'm right. Or you rip it apart and people who love negativity jump on it and argue with you or agree with you. There's no in between. There's no actual serving you information. And this whole, the way that we consume content and the way that content creators are kind of forced to do clickbait titles in order to get views, in order to grow, is just a really frustrating world to live in. So it's completely big. There's a big thing about it, in terms of the way we all talk about games. I wish we could bring a little bit more maturity to the table, and that's why I love some of the content creators out there, like yourselves, like folks like Season Gaming, who really try and be like, it's just video games. Let's not take it personally. It is just a plastic box I bought to entertain me when I'm bored. That's all it is. It's not going to change the world, especially if you're doing surgery. All right. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
Oh, yeah. I don't think we go into that, but yeah, I agree. No, it's very well said. There is definitely a certain kind of bias out there. And like you said, it's always related to what brings you the most clicks. And for years, PlayStation has been the more successful platform. So it's no surprise that the media leans towards that, because that's just where the bigger user base and the more clicks are.
Yep. But you look and you take note now, over the last couple of years, how many new Xbox podcasts there are.
Yeah.
How many new Xbox focused teams and segments from companies that only ever covered one platform. Something like, Game Pass is a bit of a game changer and it is quite popular. We better get on board. Yeah. And then you're seeing these pillars of the community kind of having to play catch up to all of this. What have Microsoft been doing? What are these studios? Do I know who they are and what they're making? As part of the reason that we started Xbox Era was when we looked around the kind of world that existed 2018, 2019 when we started. It was really frustrating at times. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were great ones out there like the Xbox 2 and Windows Central, but the majority, you'd see these huge games journalists that have been doing it for 20 years, and you'd hear them say things, and you'd be like, what?
Have you been paying attention?
How do I, a layman, know more than you about this? This doesn't, you get paid to know more about this. I don't know. I could rant on forever about it, but it's one of the reasons we exist. So who am I to complain? Otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Exactly. Well said. Let me just read briefly a super chat coming in from a Gamer by Choice. He sends in $5. Thank you so much. And he says, it would be funny if Sony money headed Ghostwire for another year and Microsoft was like, sure, give us the bag. LOL.
Oh, man. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Can you imagine? Yeah, because, well, in 2023, I don't think Microsoft really needs another game, because that year is going to be crazy for game releases.
It's going to be stupid crazy. It's going to be stupid crazy. There's so many good things I'm looking forward to that I can't wait to see this year. This E3 is going to be absolute. This E3 is Microsoft laying the table and being like, guess where we're feasting next year, boys and girls? And everyone is going to just be like, okay. And it's going to be one thing to see. I can't wait.
Absolutely. It was one of the big headlines. That's a perfect segue that you built up there.
A good segue.
It's one of the headlines on the different media outlets. This was actually something Jeff Grubb said on your podcast. And that is that he expects Perfect Dark to be shown at E3 and then probably being released in 2023. What are your thoughts? Do you think he's right with that?
It's definitely been in dev for a while. And now that obviously they've had the full team at Crystal Dynamics helping out in terms of primary development, and supporting that effort, I think he's right. I think we will see some gameplay at E3. I don't know if we'll see the game. We won't see the game this year release. I think that is a 2023 game. But we'll definitely get a teaser and a taster about what they are making. And I've heard all sorts of things in terms of what style it is. One of the preliminary kind of overpowering bits I've heard is that it is very is trying to modernize or do something a bit different with the FPS genre, because FPSs are FPSs, right? You're just a floating camera with a big gun sticking out of it and you point and shoot. Whereas, they're trying to do something a little bit more unique. So I heard someone say, like, almost imagine when you're seeing a GoPro user running
I've heard body
around, like,
cam.
like almost very, very visual,
Yeah.
very visceral, very, I hate that word. It's a classic buzzword that is, but very, like almost Mirror's Edgy style vaulting and movement and freedom of exploration around whatever the games worlds are. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's just what I've heard, but I'm very, very keen. Perfect Dark was one of my favorite games on the N64. I played the hell out of it. I was very good at it.
This and GoldenEye.
Yeah, and there's rumors of the GoldenEye remaster eventually coming this year. That would be very nice to see. So definitely excited to see what Perfect Dark ends up being. But Jeff said he's expecting gameplay at E3, and I don't think he's wrong.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's 2018 is when they founded the initiative, so it's 4 years now. And I remember a tweet that is probably a year and a half old, where the lead concept or artist, or I don't know his exact title, posted a picture of his daughter actually playing the game on Twitter.
Yeah.
So
was it Drew? Was it Drew Murray? He's gone back to the
Drew Murray.
Insomniac.
Thank you. Yeah, he's going. Yeah, he went back to Insomniac now. He posted that picture, but still, that tells you that they had at least a certain build up and running 1.5 years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised that now, after, let's say, around about 4 years, E3 this year is 4 years for them. The game is at least exactly and that is brings me up to a question I wanted to ask you. Over the last E3 showcases, the biggest criticism has always been that Microsoft doesn't like to show gameplay. Most of the trailers have been CGI trailers, and even in the lead up to the launch of the Xbox Series X, they didn't show much gameplay running on the console. It was actually 5 days prior to launch when we saw for the first time Xbox Series X gameplay. 10 days prior to launch, we saw Xbox Series S gameplay. So do you really think Microsoft is going to change that this year?
That's a really good question. So I think there's a couple of reasons you see stuff like that. One is if you look at announcements like Fable.
Yeah.
Just or even if you look at the Elder Scrolls announcement, right? Elder Scrolls 6, which isn't necessarily or wasn't at the time a purely Microsoft announcement, but it is now. They didn't show you much beyond the fact we are making this game.
Yes.
And one of the primary reasons you get things like that, it serves two purposes. One, it allows you to openly recruit for talent because you can say what you're working on instead of having to interview people under NDA. And two, it lets excuse me, just knocking stuff over on my desk. It lets the community know that particular genres or IPs that they absolutely adore are coming back. And it gives you a positive PR buzz. So I think there's a time and a place for CGI announcement trailers. With regards to the specific criticism of how they launched the Series X, I get the community's reaction on it, and I don't want to play Microsoft Events Force. But when we spoke to Jason Ronald on the Xbox Era podcast a few months back, we talked about what it was like launching this kind of hardware remotely, in a world where this kind of creation of software and hardware is very collaborative and very team driven. And he described it as the Dark Souls of console launches, which I think is just a perfect quote, how ridiculously difficult all of that must have been. And I think what you were seeing was, look, they're confident, the consoles are coming, but getting all of the bells and whistles in place to be able to capture X, Y, and Z, and getting all the teams to do everything when people are having to upload builds and remotely download builds and then upload code, and all of that was just such a hurdle to jump that the focus was on meeting the end goal than satisfying the showcases necessary. And when you can, for want of a better phrase, when you know what the target end result render resolution will look like, and you can emulate that on a high-end PC, I understand why they would do that. I get that it's not great from a consumer perspective because you're not actually necessarily seeing what you're getting. But if I look back now with the benefit of hindsight, I didn't see anything that doesn't look what I've actually ended up with, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't see anything on display where I was like, that's never going to happen. Then it's come out and I've been like, see, I was right. It's been in the ballpark, right? So
yeah,
I think that's the element to it. But will they do more CG things? Yes, for stuff that's further out, but that they still want to start maybe recruiting for, or maybe getting the positive PR buzz. But I think much like the cadence of games is going to change from 2023 onwards, we're going to see the style of how they talk to the community. I've seen a lot of stuff bubbling, and maybe this is the segue right into, do they need, I don't know if I'm doing the job for you. Do they need different shows? I think the content pipeline is all part and parcel with that.
Mm-hmm.
They will defer and start to change things up because they'll get to a point where there is too much to fit in sensibly into a 1.5 hour show. It's just how it's going to be. And then we can really look forward to a world where every 3 months we'll see showcases and stuff like that. I mean, I love that. I'd love to have that kind of cadence, and I'm really looking forward to it when it happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Microsoft has had, I mean, let's go back to 2018. That's really when all these studio acquisitions started. And then again in 2019, they increased their studio roster to 15 studios, and they acquired Bethesda in 2020. And now they are sitting at 23 studios. And now with, of course, Activision, they are growing beyond 30. And that is a challenge in itself, to suddenly double the size of your team, to manage all these studios and getting stuff ready. And then they have also had issues with showing gameplay simply too early, and a lot of backlash on that. I think Hellblade 2 was a good example where they have shown now at the Game Awards actual gameplay footage out of the game, so we know at least what does it look like, what is the camera angles, and what are they going for. I think these kind of showings, these like 4 or 5 minute segments out of a game, are perfect to introduce as gamers to the idea of a game. What does it look like? What is it? Is it? How does it? Or will it end up in terms of gameplay and stuff?
Yep.
Will Microsoft take a bit more risks this year? Is still something I'm not really sure. Of course, they will show Starfield. They will show Redfall. Forza Motorsport is also probably a safe bet. But I think what you have said is what they are looking for. These smaller shows, 20, 30-minute events every 3 months or so, where they can better introduce these gameplay elements. And then they will use these big shows, the big E3 event with CGI trailers and more this hype. This is the roadmap, this is the pipeline, and then give the games the respective time, because this is also another thing. If you take like 10 minutes gameplay segments in an E3 show, you can only show like 6, 7, 8 games, and they, like you said, they simply have too much. So yeah, I do hope that they will end up with these 3-month cadence for smaller shows where they actually show gameplay. But
yeah, they've done an ID at Xbox. They've just announced one for some point in the next coming month, I think. And I love those because I love smaller indie games anyway. But I think that there's a couple of things there as well. Is that Microsoft? I don't know who's in charge overall of the type of marketing that they do for games, but I mean
that on top of the marketing,
Aaron, I suppose.
No, there's actually one guy above Aaron. Now I'm blanking on the name. He used to work for Netflix.
I know who you mean, and I'm trying to picture the name. It will come to me. I'll suddenly shout it out in 20 minutes or something. But regardless, the style of trailers that Microsoft seem to always go for are these hugely over-edited, text flying at you, you know, some sort of modern poppy beat to it, and I'm like, you know, it hits me, and I'm just in pain. I mean, it hurts my heart because I don't care. Show me 10 minutes of someone just like look at how Rockstar do it, or any kind of like more like I don't want to. I know Cyberpunk 2077 didn't launch in the best state, but when they do these walkthroughs of the world and the systems, how you interact, that's the stuff that I would argue is super easy to record. You know, any YouTuber worth his salt would be like, just play through the game and record bits and just narrate. Easy peasy, especially if you're one of the developers that made the stuff, or you get someone to write a script. But those kind of videos, hey, we're going to do this. And, you know, whether it's an Xbox Direct, whatever, and you have a 10-minute, 15-minute segment where you just do a mission in a new game that's coming, and you just get a feel for how it's actually going to look and play. That's what I would argue the majority of this audience actually want to see. Save the poppy trailers with all the text flying at you, showing off features and being cool and trying to be funny. Save that for TV. Save that for YouTube ad rolls.
Advertise.
It should not be on the main stage of E3 because gamers are the primary audience. And that's not the style of the content that we actually want. I know I'm generalizing, but I feel that is pretty close to the mark.
I agree with you. I always say, give us 5-10 minutes of gameplay and let the developer probably talk over it. Explain a little bit. We see here an early mission and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that is the kind of content. With this, we get the feeling, okay, this is how the game plays. This is how it feels. This is what I can do in the game. I agree here. Let me read a super chat briefly from Gamers Watch. £5. Thank you so much. They say, by the way, awesome guys. Shout out to you guys. I love the podcast. I've been on their podcast as well.
It's an experience.
It is an experience. It's something different.
I love those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. They say, are there any big surprises you expect to see out of E3? My dream scenario is Gear 6 on Unreal 5 gameplay. Bring shown any dream E3 speculation.
I don't think you'll see.
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see Gear 6 at E3. No, I'm sorry to burst that bubble. You might see a tease for what their smaller project is that they've been working on. But yeah, Gear 6 I think is not really far out because I think the team at the Coalition are pretty efficient, but I don't think it's coming yet. I am a firm believer in one surprise, but I'm not going to say it because I've been sworn to secrecy. But I'd be I think the community would be ecstatic to see it, and I've heard that it's actually real for once. So I'll leave that there because I've been told I'm not allowed to say, and when I'm told that, I follow Nick's instructions very clearly.
Absolutely, absolutely. We gotta respect that. And yeah, for me, I would love to see, since I'm a big RPG fan, of course, and I said Starfield is probably already given. Would be surprised if that wouldn't be shown. I want to see Avowed. I want to see Fable. I think both of those games could be in a stage where they are actually able to show something. Let me give you an example. Fable. You know when we had the first rumor of Fable, the Fable reboot being made?
2018, Eurogamer, I think.
Way earlier. It was in January 2017. We heard that the IP was given to a British studio. That was the first time. So that's more than 5 years now. And I really appreciate them taking the time as long as they need. But I think after 5 years plus in development, and I mean, of course, a lot of that was pre-development and prototyping and stuff. But still, it should be that there should be something that you can show. So I don't think that's.
Yeah, it's not outside the realms of possibility. I did hear that the Fable team had some hiccups with technology in terms of what they were trying to do with it, and obviously I think what I've heard is now that they've settled on Forza Tech being the engine, the same engine that you see powering the open world beauty of Forza Horizon 5 is what's powering Fable. I imagine that some of those hurdles were probably building in rigging systems for stuff like character animations and things like that. And we've seen some elements of that in terms of like the stuff you can dress your drivatar in and bits and pieces.
But it's something different if you need that for an open world RPG.
Yeah, you're gonna have to build whole new systems into that engine. So I imagine that probably caused quite a number of hurdles, which would partially explain the lengthy dev time. But hey, I am never going to doubt the skill of the team at Playground Games. I love the fact that some ex-Lionhead staffers have ended up there. I love the fact that it's a British studio that is doing it, because the humor of Fable was so Monty Python-esque at times that the idea of giving it to another team that isn't based in the UK to try and emulate that style of humor just wouldn't. It would have rung hollow.
Yeah.
So I'm really hopeful, and I know it sounds silly. Like Fable's always been quite light-hearted and jovial and almost stylistic in its art style. You know, it was never gunning for realism. I'd love to see a bright, colourful, but quite gritty, realistic take on a Fable world, but that's just the 37-year-old in me speaking instead of the 20-year-old that played Fable back in the day. So I don't know, pick and choose. But yeah, I think this is a strong one. Avowed as well. I think you'll probably see it at E3. But I don't know. I haven't got any confirmation of that. It's just what I'm hearing on the grapevine. I think Jeff similarly felt Avowed was a strong contender.
Yeah, Jess Gordon also spoke about this, that it should be ready to be shown. Do you think any surprise releases this year are coming outside of Forza? Forza is probably Motorsport is probably a given this year, but are there any other games?
I think we might have one smaller game that might come and surprise. And it might be the one that I'm not allowed to talk about because of the nature of what it is. It's a subtle clue there if someone wanted to pick that one apart. But I don't know. Microsoft, I think, always do pull out a surprise. And the one thing I like about their shows is that they mostly try and stick to, for the most part, they'll tell you everything is coming out this year from this point onwards, and then they'll show everything. I love that. But I do think the primary focus is going to be on Starfield. I think that game, they know they've got something special. I do think we're going to see something from a game that I don't think anyone would expect to have seen anything on yet. And if you want to know why I think that, tune into the Xbox Hero podcast on Saturday and hear what someone else might have to say about this kind of question.
I will definitely tune in, and I highly encourage everyone to do that as well. Now you're just teasing us. We have to change the topic.
I am teasing you. Honestly, when Phil jumped in, we fangirled a little. I arguably would say I had some composure. Nick was fat. He's the biggest Nick grin you could possibly imagine. Like this is kind of crazy, but yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. All right, let's move away from E3, and it's still early to talk about that. And let's briefly talk a little bit about Xcloud. Do you use Xcloud?
I do use Xcloud. I have a Razer Kishi that lives in my bag. Nice. And it's funny enough, the first time I used Xcloud, I was in a interesting hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, on a business trip, and I realized that I think while I was there that week, they said, "Hey, it's now in beta. You can do this." And I was like, and then I realized I didn't have a pad. I didn't have a Razer Kishi at that point. So I got an Uber to a Target and picked up this pad from the US, this one.
Oh.
And this became my kind of Xcloud pad for a while. So I dropped, I don't know, what was it, $50 on it in Target and walked out. Also with several 2,000 kilogram bags of caramel M&Ms. Honestly, like the bags like this, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. When I got the flight home, every time there's a girl in my office, or used to be in my office before they closed them, pre-pandemic times, where they were like, if you're going, can you get this number of M&Ms and this type of M&Ms? And the officers at the airport, they actually were like, can we have a look in your bag? And they were checking because I had 19 bags of M&Ms.
Wow.
with these giant. It was ridiculous. But Xcloud, I was surprised at how well it worked, even in those early beta days in a hotel on hotel Wi-Fi, and I was sitting there playing some games and chatting with pals with a plug-in ear bud. And I've been pleasantly surprised at how great it works, even on a train when I'm commuting. If I do have to go into London, if I'm up in bed and I don't want to sit and play on the TV, but I want to just knock off a challenge or something like that, it's additive. I wouldn't use it as my primary playing method, and it certainly suits better some types of games better than others, like games without response time being.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't enjoy an online match of Halo Infinite on cloud.
Yeah, probably.
But I would thoroughly enjoy, you know, turn-based games or you know, walk and talk kind of platformers that aren't, you know, relying on precision jumping, stuff like that. I think is actually really good.
Absolutely. I also love to play Xcloud, especially those turn-based games. Octopath Traveler, for instance, is a game that I actually play even with the touch controls because it's a turn-based RPG, works really well. I have a controller clip, you know, these clips that where you can simply attach your phone to on my nightstand. So when my wife wants to watch one of her series before going to bed, I just play with that in bed. And I really like Xcloud, and they have announced. Well, they haven't properly announced it, but now I have to look his name up. Give me a second. I want to get that right. The lead of the Microsoft Flight Simulator, the head of the flight sim, actually said in an interview this week that Xcloud is getting a native mouse and keyboard support on a system level. It's not just related to Microsoft Flight Sim, that it will be supported on a system level. With that,
that's really good.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's a game changer. I haven't actually tried it because I don't need to on PC, but I imagine on my work laptop in the future, just being able to open up a browser and start playing around with some Xbox games, it's a no-brainer.
Just because I wanted to see how it runs, I've tried it on my Surface, and it obviously it works. It doesn't work as good as the Android app that I have on my phone, to be honest. There's a little bit more latency, but it's still a good in between experience. And now when it gets mouse and keyboard support, that opens up a lot of things, like, for instance, Age of Empires, my most played game in 2021. Stuff like
Why
that.
Not?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, it's the perfect format for it, to be able to just touch on the screen and drag and drop, or have a little mouse and just use your work laptop or a Surface with a keyboard plugged in. It's just, this is what I love about this era of technology we're in, is we've got all of this availability to just you know, fill in those blank moments with something that's actually a little bit more worthwhile than a cookie cutter clicky thing game on a mobile phone. Like, actually have something with some meat or some value to us personally behind it. I absolutely adore that. More of it, and it can only get better. That's the thing. This technology is only going to improve.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's going to be a great time, I think, just to be into games for this generation. It's so good.
Like you said, it's all about the options. It's just it isn't pushing anything away, or it's just an additional option. And I love that they integrate more and more stuff to mature this technology. Jon, one last topic before we move to the community questions. Have you heard of a little game called Redfall?
I have heard of a little co-op-y game from the studio that never seems to miss.
Exactly.
Arcane Studios.
And they posted something this week on Twitter. They are hiring big time. 17 positions. Lead VFX artist, senior environmental artists, technical animators, tons of programmers in lead positions, in senior and junior positions. So posting couple of months before the game is supposed to come out, 17 job openings on Twitter. Do you
Is
think?
it a cause for concern?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I haven't heard a single peep that Redfall is not coming when they've said it's coming, which is summer of 2022, which I presume is going to be August, September of 2022,
Yeah.
right? It's important to note that with all of Microsoft games, I mean, look at some of the recent additions to Game Pass, and I'll call out Back for Blood, Fireteam Aliens, Fireteam Elite, whatever it's called, Anacrusis. These are all cooperative shooters that are there to be jumped in, have fun with friends, yada yada yada. Is Redfall available to play through with a narrative and a single player? Yes, but it's also Arcane dabbling in that real multiplayer world. In the kind of like this new vampire-driven IP they've created. Is it a surprise to me that they maybe want to continue creating content for a title like that? No. Should we be concerned? I'd still probably say no. I think Microsoft would have known that posting that kind of thing would lead to that kind of conversation and questions. But arguably, we're not going to know until we see the next gameplay trailer and deep dive in it at whatever E3 ends up being. So, at this point, like we knew coming into 2022 that it was going to be a year light on finished games. Their pipeline is so stacked, but things have just lagged a bit because of all of the last couple of years. I think they would love to release it if they could. If it ends up being delayed, it ends up being delayed. It will just give them more wiggle room to just have an incredible cadence come 2023 to drop games like nobody's business. So I hope not. I think it's probably more just planning for future content for something like that.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we can't say for sure. Microsoft has been very open about them being careful with release dates. So Phil Spencer has talked about this. Aaron Greenberg has talked about this. That they are now that they have those this many studios that they consider their release dates more carefully, and when they announce it, they want to make sure that they hit that target. They've learned their lessons, not just with Halo, but also prior to that with other games. And so I think Microsoft wouldn't be putting out a release window like summer 2022 if they wouldn't be confident that they can actually hit it. And that the studios is growing and hiring talent only tells you that they have plans for other big things to come. And I wouldn't put it as a concern out there. Yeah,
I think that's the right way to go.
Yeah. A super chat came in from Skate Elite, and he says Redfall shadow drop at E3.
Nah, it's too big a game. If a game is going to get shadow dropped, I would say GoldenEye would be a prime candidate for a shadow drop at E3.
Yeah,
they'd do the trailer and be like available now, and then everyone goes crazy, right? That would be the one that would, because it's nostalgic, it's fun, it's a small game, it's not going to destroy the world. Redfall is a game they not just want to pump into Game Pass and get people to watch and play and stream, but they're going to want the traditional marketing cycle. They're going to want reviews. They're going to want people to actually tell everybody what it is rather than just shadow drop it. GoldenEye is a known quantity. That's the kind of thing you would shadow drop.
Yeah, I agree there. I don't think with Starfield and Redfall being the only two big ones announced yet, and probably we will get, of course, Forza. So they won't just shadow drop it; they will really market this game and, like you said, reviews, etc.
New IP, they're going to have to go big or go home, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, we'll see. Right. I'm excited. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be Game of Christmas. It's summertime.
So many.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, man. I always say, if you just look at the games that have already been announced to come day one into Game Pass, those alone will keep us busy for the rest of the year. There are so many great games coming, like A Plague's Tale is coming, Atomic Hearts is coming day one. So much to play.
I can't wait.
That, yeah, me too. Me too. And Gotham Knights just got a release date in October.
Yes, it did.
Oh,
It's just
oh yeah.
a rumored beta got kind of hit,
Yeah.
snuck about on Steam, I think. So, I mean, we're spoilt for choice, folks. And
Yes,
I
we
know,
are.
if you're on the Xbox camp side of things, and maybe you dip your toes into the old console wars every now and then just to see what's kicking about, and you're probably seeing everybody on the PlayStation side having all this fun. That's how they felt last year. Right? So it's peaks and troughs. The whole
Yeah.
point of Microsoft's approach is to get rid of those peaks and troughs, and you just got to give them that little bit more time to get there, and then, well, you'll just be playing banger after banger, hopefully.
Exactly. And with that fantastic statement, I think we move over to the community questions. All right. I see you really feel those.
I
jingles.
love these jingles, man. I need to get some of them as like ringtones. That last one really spoke to my heart.
I'm glad you enjoy them. So the community questions, the community can write in each and every week on Twitter, on YouTube, some questions, simply to be able to be a part of the show, even if you can't make it live here. And so we already had like 20 questions coming from the community this week. I can't read them all, but I picked some of the best ones, and I want to say a big thank you to everyone who wrote in. And the first of the day comes in from Jonathan Smith, and he asks, do you think we as the market are doing a sufficient job on telling game companies with our wallet what practices we don't like in the industry? It seems to me like people love to talk about their dislike for things like microtransactions, but never seem to get enough of the market to stop purchasing them.
Blimey. So we're talking about bad practices, right? And
Bad
voting with
practices like microtransactions, price increases, NFTs.
Oh man, it's such a difficult thing to counter towards, right? Because end of the day, games have to make money in order to be made, right? And this is why modern large AAA companies and publishers are so risk averse, where they'll make something that's been, played and refined to almost where it's lost its character. And I think that's why Elden Ring has been such a breath of fresh air for a lot of the critics out there, is that it ignores all the tropes of what you would consider to be an open world map game. I've heard the phrase used. But when we talk about things like microtransactions and voting with wallet, I bought the cat ears in Halo. All right. Okay. Come at me. All right. I'm 37 years old. I have disposable income. I like cats. Now, is it a mark of shame? It certainly is amongst my peers, my friends. I think, always getting trolled about it. But it's my money. I'll do what the hell I like with it. So I understand that argument, right? I think I admire gaming companies that try and put out a product that is either fair in its pricing. If that is if it's free to play, I understand that stuff has to exist. It's games where they'll come out and it's a fully paid for game, and then they give you this option, and then they generate psychologically this element of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, where, if I don't buy it now, then I'm going to miss out and all my friends are going to have X, Y, and Z. Those are the ones where I'm like, there should be more pushback from the community on these kind of things. And I think a prime example of that is whenever I see game developers hiring psychologists or economists to help drive game design, that is effectively an admission to, we are out to manipulate you and how you interact with the product. That's like, whoa. Like, what happened to the world where games were just fun, and a game can just be what it is? And you look at the feedback that Halo Infinite's got over the last few months, and in terms of roadmap and the struggles the game has had, everyone was singing its praises pre-Christmas. But then the realization sunk in that, they did this really cool PR move to release it a month early. But now they've had to stretch that season that was only meant to be this long to twice as long. So 3-month season into a 6-month season. And then people are going, well, where's the content? And it's like, well, everyone wanted just to release the game early. I'm really happy with it. But now we've not got enough content to really justify that. And plus, we're trying to fix all these other things. And it creates this really negative feeling where we're seeing the population drop off, because 1 minute they're screaming that the progress for the battle pass isn't fast enough. So they speed it up, and now they're done. And now they don't want to. And it's almost become this world where, you're not playing games for fun anymore. You're playing them because it's a job, because you've got to get the thing and you've got to tick the box and you've got to do the strike or you've got to do the challenge, and then you stop and then you come back next week because you've got to log in and clock in, do the job.
Weekly challenge and
And I get that as game design to promote people coming back, but it's also, I don't need a second job. I've already got 3 Xbox era actual work. I don't need another job. I need games that respect my time. And even as someone who loves something like Sea of Thieves, I love it because it's fun and it doesn't care about levels or checklists or anything like that. But it also doesn't respect my time. So I'm in two minds about it, but it doesn't at least try to manipulate me. And when they did introduce a paid for store, it's all cosmetic. It all doesn't really matter. So yeah, it's a really difficult. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. What's your take?
It is. I always say, we should vote with our wallet. Nintendo is a perfect example. I complain so much about Nintendo, and then I end up buying again the 3D Mario collection and this and that game again and again. So I'm definitely part of the problem, even though I'm complaining. And that just shows you they know how to manipulate you. They know how to lure you in and still get your money.
Nick's got a phrase. Nick's got a phrase. He says, Sony fans are blindly loyal. And this is Nick, so I'm just quoting him, so don't come at me with these words. Sony fans are blindly loyal. Nintendo fans are begrudgingly loyal. And Xbox fans will kill you if you do something wrong, Microsoft, so don't even try. And that, I think that is part and parcel because of how Microsoft interacts with the community. But Nintendo are in this really neat position where their IPs are so beloved and their games are often so high quality that when they re-release it again for $60, with shinier graphics or whatever, everyone that is a diehard Nintendo fan goes, "Oh, you bastards, but that's such a good game." And then they'll just buy it anyway. Exactly. Just what it is.
So saying vote with your wallet is an easy thing. In reality, it is a little bit harder. I think what is really important is, and I see that especially in the Xbox community very well, is just speak up. It's not just about voting with your wallet. It's also about getting vocal. We have these instruments now with social media that we can express our likes and dislikes. And I think that is an important part of the feedback as well. So
completely agree.
You mentioned Halo. The next question coming in from Red Tornado 138 says, "Hey guys, some sources are saying many of the contractors who were working on Halo Infinite have left the studio and only 1/3 of the team have been working on Season 2. And that's the reason why Season 2 is called Lone Wolves. What do you guys think about these problems at 343?
Okay. I mean, I can speak to some of this. So I know Boxenberg, I'm not sure if you're aware, right? But I actually got the pleasure to fly out to 343 in 2020, just before the lockdown kicked off. And I was working. Nice. Well, I'm in the credits for the game, which was one hell of a life goal, right? From someone who played Halo for the first time, age 16, and it blew my tiny little mind, to being flown out to the studio to help play test and provide feedback on the next iteration of Forge for Halo Infinite, was a moment, right? It was like, wow, I can't believe I get to do this. And I can't talk about what Forge will end up being. I can't speak to anything that's going on at the moment. There's a lot of things at play here. So do Microsoft use contractors Yes. There are things called tenure laws, which is how long a contractor can remain as a contractor at a company. And if they go beyond that threshold, they have to be offered a full-time position. So they're often let go.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that rumor that a third of staff contractors have been let go, and that's why it's called low rules. I think that's probably nonsense. This content has probably been planned out for a while, to my knowledge. What I would say is that contracting law isn't a Microsoft law; it's a United States law, right? So there's an argument to be made that just hire these people and secure the talent, but a lot of game developers and game companies use contracted labor to do this, contingent labor to do this, and it's just one of those things. The thing you have to at least have faith in is that the people that are behind the core design and the core decisions, the core talent, are still remaining in their roles and pushing that talent further. I think it is just a case of they want to launch things when they're ready and they want to respect their teams. There was probably a fair amount of effort to get Halo Infinite out over the line. And look, as a Halo fan, I want more content and I want it sooner too. But it is what it is. I do know, I think the Forge launching is going to be the big moment for Halo Infinite this year. And I'm really looking forward to being able to talk more about it at some point in that near future. But just, unfortunately, Microsoft fans, we're used to this. Just wait.
Wait. See, on the contractor thing, I don't think we should overemphasize this. I've seen a lot of podcasts lately talk about this. And it is a totally normal thing in game development, because there are different phases in game development where you will need more or less staff. Let's take, for instance, you don't need people that create assets like textures and stuff over the entire course of your game development cycle. You just need, at some point, you need like a couple of guys making 5,000 different trees, and after that, you don't need them anymore. So having different kind of staff, playtesting is, for instance, also something. Of course, there is a different kind of intensity in playtesting your game prior to launch and post-launch. You don't need the same amount of staff, and that's where contractors come in. So I wouldn't overemphasize this part. The thing with, I understand the community about Halo not having enough content right now. The thing is, if you compare it to other shooters out there, like your Fortnites, your Apex, your Warzones, etc., they bring you on a more or less on a monthly basis new content to look forward to. And of course, Halo Infinite is getting compared to those kind of games. I still think Microsoft or 343 had something different in mind when with Halo Infinite, and that there are multiple things going on right now. Probably they have not at some point the best management, but there's also other things happening, like the pandemic that hit them really hard, and other things. So it's always a combination of that. I understand the fan base, but like you said, sometimes Xbox fans simply have to wait.
We're used to it. All right, come on, we're experts now.
We're used to it. Definitely. All right. The next question comes in from you, and it's more technical related. And he says, with games like Elden Ring showing the importance of load times from repeatedly dying, do you think we could see an Xbox Series revision that uses a PCI Express 4 instead of the current one? It is that. Pardon me. There is a quite significant delta in between Sony and Xbox, and it seems to have been an oversight in the initial design compared to its main competitor. So basically, let me rephrase the question: is the SSD speed enough for this generation, or is it an issue over the course of this generation, when especially compared to the PlayStation? What do you think?
I'm not technical enough to really give an answer as to whether it makes a material difference or not. I would say that tests have been performed on stuff that was only possible on the PlayStation 5 SSD with a much slower SSD, and it works exactly the same.
Yeah.
So, look, Microsoft don't just make games for console; they make games across all of their studios. Everything releases PC and Xbox same time. And people on PC won't always have an SSD. So it's all about scaling up, scaling down, taking advantage of the platform and having a standardized connector. Will they look at some revision where one box is faster? Yeah, maybe, but they won't specifically code to the faster part because your primary consumer base won't have it, right?
Always
It's
the
not a
lowest
big
common
enough selling
denominator.
point.
Yeah.
It is just what it is. So I don't think it's going to make a blind bit of difference in terms of what we get. And even with all of this, Switch is the number one selling console month on month, and it's a slow, a low powered, technologically wise crap. And people love it. So what does it matter if my game loads 2 seconds faster than another game? It's much better than anything we've ever had in the console space before. I'm really not that concerned, and I don't think that the disparity or the delta between the two platforms is really worth all the song and praise. I think that is some really great Sony marketing coming through there. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it is definitely marketing, like you said. It's the only technical spec where there is an actual delta in between, where Sony has an advantage over the Xbox. So of course, this is a big focus of the marketing. In reality, I don't think it makes a big difference. It would make a difference if actual game design really relied on having an SSD. We haven't seen that so far, and especially on the Sony side of things. Just yesterday at the State of Play, they have talked about their cross-gen games in 2023. So all of those run on a regular HD drive. So it's really just about load times. And don't get me wrong, I love short load times. We have gotten used to it now. It's hard to go back. It's glorious. People often forget that even the SSD in the Xbox is a super fast SSD. You have to pay real good money on the market to get an SSD with 2.4 gigabits per second in your PC. So it's not like this is a low speed SSD. This is still a very high speed and fast SSD that they have built in. And having said that all, we also still are in that phase where we haven't seen any game released that is actually making full advantage of the GDK that Xbox has delivered with the series consoles. I mentioned this earlier. I do think we will see this later this year. All the Xbox exclusive games that will come out in the future are next gen only, and they will games like a Starfield, I expect those to really take advantage of what the Velocity architecture can actually provide. But I don't think that it is a design flaw in the Xbox Series consoles, because again, it's a fast SSD, and I appreciate them saving that money on the even faster SSD and putting it in the other components like GPU and CPU, which is higher spec there. So
exactly right. Completely agree.
Good. So one last question before we close the show off. It comes in from Lost Forever Plays. And he says, I'm worried about being pushed on PlayStation in Spartacus paying $120 a year just to keep cloud safe and PS Plus games when I don't play online. Is anyone else worried, or is it just me? I want to rephrase that question again. Do you think, with all that we have heard from, for instance, Jeff Grubb talking about it, that Spartacus is actually worth its money? I mean,
so it depends. It depends, right? If it's just a game subscription service, some cloud gaming, and they
Yeah.
kind of pull in PS Now and PS Plus and everything else, but they don't give you day one games. I don't know. It feels like more like padding their numbers a bit to say, oh well, our new PS Platinum service has X number of subscribers because we've merged the two subscriber bases, whatever. But Sony is not Microsoft. Sony has Sony Pictures, has Crunchyroll Animation. They've got a lot of different things that they can go, okay, well, we're going to create a general Sony subscription that gives you the best of everything that we do. So Sony Music, Sony Films, Sony Animes, Sony Games. And then there's a different value proposition at play that Microsoft don't necessarily have a hat in the ring for. They give you perks like Spotify, Disney Plus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're only perks to eventually go and subscribe for another subscription service, right? 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious. I think the whole fact that Spartacus exists is proof in the pudding that Game Pass has made a big difference, is a sustainable business model. I think Sony's fear is that I don't want to come across console worry, so I'm trying to be very careful with my words.
Yeah.
Have a look and have a think about how long it takes PlayStation to generally make the types of games they make. And this is nothing but praise. These are refined, polished, exquisite titles for their audience. They're bread and butter. They know what they do. They take 5 to 6 years often to make. And what we've seen now is that we're seeing sequels where they're coming out in less time and they're more iterative rather than revolutionary. They're still the same level of polish, but they need to start recouping some of this money. They cannot afford, in terms of modern development cost, these extended development times anymore, which is why we've seen them make more acquisitions, and then why we're seeing them not leaving the money on the table anymore with PC. And I think we're going to start seeing things like, Game X comes out and then we'll follow it up with a huge chunk of content in the same engine because, we've immediately got to work on that straight after the main game is shipped to keep that revenue going while the pre-production team's working on the next title, because they have to keep this going.
Yeah.
And this is because they don't want to, or they're not in a position to yet, I think, to really put their games on day one because they need the upfront cost covered.
Yeah.
Having said that, again, Sony fans, super, super loyal, I think, more than any other platform holders fan base. And I think if they did do day one games, I think people would love it. People would just buy it because the Sony quality is appreciated and loved in the industry. And, for all of the talk of 110 million PS4 sold, has 110 million copies of God of War sold?
Yeah.
No.
20? It didn't.
25?
Yeah.
What attach rate is that?
25, I think that was Spider-Man, and God of War was a little bit less than that. So if you can build a world where you're selling 110 million consoles, and instead of worrying about selling 110 million copies of game, you start pushing your subscription service to say, actually, we want people to be giving us recurring money month on month, and we want to hit 60, 70 million of our 110 million customer base. That is more money than selling 20 copies at $60 because it's recurring year on year. And they need to be able to get to that point. So I'm very curious to see what they end up doing. But, I'm not a business analyst. I'm just looking at this from a same point of view that anyone else in the community would look at it. But yeah, super interesting time. Best generation, most competitive. Absolutely.
I absolutely love all this back and forth.
And in the end, we as the gamers are the winners from that healthy competition.
Absolutely.
And just to close this off and briefly give my thoughts, it is a discussion I've seen many times now with Spartacus not having day one games. At least we assume it won't have them. Is it worth the money? Is it the same like Game Pass? I don't think we necessarily need to look at it like this. I have all the consoles. I have the PlayStation, I have Xbox, I have the Nintendo Switch, and I have a good PC, so I can really choose to play wherever I want. My main platform is the Xbox. and I use my PlayStation as an exclusive platform. For me, it's probably not the value I'm looking for if there are day one games in there. For someone who owns a PlayStation only, it can still be a very good value to have a 10 or 15 euros or dollars or whatever per month subscription and get like a couple of hundred games. Would we have to ask ourselves, if we wouldn't have Game Pass, or Game Pass wouldn't have day one titles, would it still be worth the 13 or 15 dollars we pay? Yeah, probably, because there's still a lot of good games in there. It wouldn't be the same like it is today, but there are probably still enough gamers out there that see value in that. And like you said, I don't think that Sony has the financial capabilities at the moment to put them in day one,
Yeah,
especially when they don't have high subscriber numbers. I always say there's at some point there's a break-even point, but you have to have a couple of million subscribers to your subscription for service before it comes profitable. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what Sony will end up doing with that. But man, Jon, it's been absolutely awesome to have you on. We are in the show for, yeah, over 100 minutes now. Thank
oh,
you so much for taking the time.
oh mate, absolute pleasure. It's flown by, and I often don't get a chance to talk as much when I'm doing a podcast with Nick. So it's nice to to be able to breathe a little and relax and get a bit chatty and ranty.
Yeah.
It's good. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, again, thanks for coming. And in case anyone wants to see what Jon does, I have all his links in the description of the show note. So you can find him on Twitter, of course, Xbox Era, and the YouTube channel, and so on. Again, thanks for having me. Let people know again what is coming up this Saturday.
Thank you for letting me plug this one more time. This Saturday at 11 p.m. GMT, so that'd be midnight for folks in Europe. Sorry, it's so late.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know what time it is in the US. It's too far away for me to worry about. But 11 p.m. GMT, you guys can do the math. It's our 100th episode of the Xbox Era podcast. We are having lots and lots of friends who have been on previously popping by, and expect to see some very, very funny. I've seen some of them already. I think it's just me and Nick, but we will also be having a special guest popping by to congratulate us, which is Mr. Phil Spencer himself, which is something that we did not think was ever going to happen. And we're absolutely stoked that he was willing to give up some of his time, even just to pop in and congratulate us. But he might have some little things, little nuggets of information that folks might be interested in. So pop on by. And we're currently all steaming to be able to give the community one more very special surprise, something we've been working on for 10 something months that we're hoping to launch shortly after the show for our community. I won't say any more than that, but I literally got the link just before I jumped on this show, and I was like, and then I got very excited. So we are doing our best. We've got 3 days to really polish it to get it to that point, but fingers crossed, we'll see what we can do. But thank you ever so much, and everyone for checking it out, and obviously for coming out and hanging out with me in Boxenberger. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, it has. And I'm really looking forward to this. I probably won't watch it live. Like you said, it's midnight, but I will definitely watch it on Sunday. Can't wait. Again, big congratulations for reaching the
Thank you.
100th episode and getting Phil on. This is a big achievement. So, and again, thanks for your time. Thanks everyone in chat for the awesome discussions. Thank you so much for the super chats, and of course, just for hanging out with us. This is what drives the show. It is you, the community. You guys really are awesome, and we always have such a great and a well-behaved chat. I really
Very
appreciate
well
that. Yes,
very well behaved.
indeed. And a big part of that is, of course, by moderators. I want to also say a big thank you to Mr. Joanna Dar, Crazy Louie, and Fireboss. They help keep the streets of World of Gaming safe. Thanks, guys. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. We will have Ainsley from Season Gaming on here at the World of Gaming at our regular time, so 1 hour earlier than we started today. But yeah, again, thanks everyone for hanging out with us, and I see you guys next week. And don't forget to game on.
Thanks.